Good evening. Welcome to the class. I would like us to kindly wait for the others to also join. If you just joined, I want us to kindly wait for the others to also join so that we start. Yes. So let's wait for about maybe 5 minutes for the others to also join. Then we can start with our classes today. So if you just joined, I want us to kindly wait for the others to also join. Yes, so that we can begin with our classes. Yes, I want everyone to participate or to come on board. Then we can fully start. So we are giving 5 minutes for all our friends to also join. Yes. So we can start. We can start. So this evening, we are highly grateful, yes, to get this opportunity, yes. And my name is Sir Petra, yes. So today's lesson is centered on the course Liberal Studies. Now we are going to start with the Unit 1 of the very slide or the PDF I shared on the platform. Yes. So today we are going to tackle Unit 1. You are free to drop your questions, your comments, anything, any idea you want to share in the comment section, and it will be attended to. Yes. It will be attended to. So if you have any question as the presentation goes on, you just put your question in the comment section, then we'll see to it. Thank you very much for your understanding. So now I'd like us to begin. Now the course Liberal Studies talks about interesting subtopics. And when I say interesting subtopics, I'm trying to mean that the subtopics under the course itself is very, very interesting, and we are going to enjoy them. So as we have in the slides, the Unit 1 is going to talk about definition of key terms like human right, gender and inclusion, disaster risk reduction in the school context. Unit 2 is going to talk about human rights issues in the school setting. The Unit 3 is also going to talk about causes and consequences of human rights abuses in school setting. Then Unit 4 will talk about issues of gender and inclusion in the school setting. So anything that we'll be learning concerning right, disaster management, gender, will be applied or will link it directly to what goes on in the various schools, that is the basic school. So without wasting much time, let's go to Unit 1. Let's go to Unit 1. So Unit 1 is basically talking about defining key terms. Now for us to be able to understand the course very well, we need to understand certain concepts, certain terms. So that is what we have: the human right, gender and inclusion, and disaster risk reduction in the school context. So the introduction, as we have it in the slide, is basically talking about the lesson introduces student teachers to the concept of human right, gender and inclusion, and disaster risk reduction in the school setting. This lesson will also enable student teachers to appreciate the linkages among the concept of human right, gender, and disaster. Student teachers will then have the opportunity to reflect and evaluate on their own teaching perception and biases in relation to these three concepts, which are likely to impact on the effectiveness as teachers. The lesson will also help student teachers imply and apply their knowledge of human rights, gender and inclusion, and disaster risk reduction in teaching and learning. So let's go straight to our first key term, or our first concept that we are going to look at. Now we are going to talk about human right. We all know that when we say right, we are basically talking about advantages that an individual enjoys, that he or she is entitled to. So basically, all these rights are just enshrined under the 1992 Constitution. That is right. So when we look at our slide, what we have in our slide is that the concept of human right means that every person is entitled to the standards or condition necessary for living a decent life. Necessary for living a decent life. In simple terms, human rights are those basic entitlements that protect our ability to satisfy the basic needs with dignity and respect. Dignity and respect. So like I made mention earlier, the human right that we know right from SHS, right from the basic school, right from JHS, is the same human right that we have here. And we can mention and mention and mention examples of right that we as citizens are entitled to. And this right, we can put them into types or group them into types. So as an example, we have political right, we have social right, we have natural right, and many more. But for the sake of this presentation, we'll look at few examples of right. So we have right to life, which is under the natural right that I was talking about. Is that the universality of this is that all over the world, and it is wrong to take someone's life, not even one's own life. That is it. So, rights are entitlement that individuals have. Entitlement. No one can take it from them. Rights are universal, based on an individual's constitution. So, talking about right to life is inalienable, meaning that no one can take it from you. In fact, you came to this earth with this right that we are talking about. It is right from birth. As a human right may also be defined as a universal moral right, something which all men everywhere at all times ought to have, including children, and something of children. Again, we also have political right, and this political right seeks to give citizens the opportunity to participate in political activities. Political activities like voting, contesting an election to be voting for, that is exercising their franchise. We also have economic right, and this economic right talks about the right to own a property, the right to work, and the right to fair wages. We also have other rights, like I said. So human rights are rights that every human being has by virtue of his or her human dignities are right inherent to all human beings. They define relationship between individuals and power structures, especially the state. Human rights delimit state power and at the same time require state to take positive measures, ensuring an environment that enables all people to enjoy their human right. So what we are trying to say here is that the human right that we are talking about are entitlement that all humans have. They are advantages that all humans have that makes their life a dignified one. Without human right, we cease to exist as normal human beings. Let me put it that way. So that is human right for us. Now we are coming to look at some basic human right principles. So human rights are universal. Human rights are foreign to no culture and native of all nations. They are universal. So Kofi Annan, who was the former Secretary General of the United Nations, addressed at the University of Tehran on Human Rights Day, 10th December 1997. Human rights are universal because they are based on every human being's dignity, irrespective of race, color, sex, ethnic or social origin, religion, language, nationality, age, sexual orientation, disability, or any other distinguishing characteristics. Since they are accepted by all states and peoples, they apply equally and indiscriminately to every person and are the same for everyone, everywhere. So, talking about some basic human rights principles. What we just read is just talking about the universality of human right. That irrespective of your color, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of the country that you are coming from, human right is still human right. That is why even when there is a breach of human right in any country, we see a lot of advocates coming from the international front, specifically United Nations organization. Why are human rights important? Why are human rights important? Why are human rights important? So human rights reflect the minimum standards necessary for people to live with dignity and equality. Human rights give people the freedom to choose how they live, how they express themselves, and what kind of government they want to support, among many other things. It is this same human right that even helps citizens to hold government accountable on certain issues. So human rights also guarantee people the means necessary to satisfy their basic needs, such as food, housing, education, so they can take full advantage of all opportunities. So let's look at the 5 basic tenets underlying human rights as they apply to all people. We can also term this as the characteristics or features of human rights. So like we made mention earlier on in this presentation, human rights is universal. That is, they belong to all people, equally regardless of status. All people are born free and equal in dignity and right. Human rights is inalienable, and that is, they may not be taken away or transferred. People still have human rights even when their government violates those rights. The third one, interconnected, because the fulfillment or violation of one right affects the fulfillment of other rights. This point is very, very vital because when you look at all the rights that we have, even in the Constitution, a breach of one leads to the breach of other. That is the interconnectedness that we are talking about. So, when someone engages a child in child labor, the person denies the child of education, which is that same person's right to education, that is the child. At the same time, involving the child in the child labor is also a breach of another right on the dignity. The fourth point also talks about the indivisible nature of this right that we are talking about. That is, no right can be treated in isolation. No right is more important than the other. So all the rights are important. We don't have a small right or a big right, or for this right is important and must be placed first. The fifth point, non-discriminatory, in that human rights should be respected without distinction, exclusion, restriction, or preference based on race, color, age, national or ethnic origin, language, religion, etc. So that is human right for us. In fact, we have learned a lot about human right. You made mention that the concept of human right did not even start today. From ages, it has been there till now. This human right that we are talking about in simple terms are those basic entitlements that protect our ability to satisfy the basic needs with dignity and respect. We have types of human rights and we made mention of them: political rights, natural rights, so on and so forth. We also looked at the features or characteristics of human right: the universality, the inalienability, the interconnectedness, the non-discriminatory feature of it, the indivisible nature of it, and so on and so forth. Now let's move to concept of gender and inclusion. Now when we say gender, gender is different from sex. Yes, gender is different from sex. When they ask you gender, it is quite unfortunate that people normally interchange the two, that is gender and sex. But under this particular concept, we know what gender is, that it is not the same as sex. It's not the biological difference between men and women, boys and girls, rather a set if the social attribute associated with being male or female learned through socialization. Gender, therefore, is a social construct that defines what it means to be a man or a woman, boy or girl in a given society. It carries specific rules, status, and expectations within households, communities, and culture. Individuals may also self-identity as neither male or female, or both male and female. Gender can also mean social attributes and opportunities associated with being male and female and the relationships between women and men, girls and boys, as well as the relations between women and those between men. That is gender for us. Now, under the gender, let's look at some terms also, like gender roles. So gender roles are shaped by the different social and cultural context they exist in. Factors like country origin, ethnic group, age, economic class, and religion all affect which rules and responsibilities that men and women, boys and girls are expected to have. So when you go to a country, there will be a different rule that a boy will perform or a girl will perform. Likewise, when you come to Ghana, in our social settings, there are also different roles played by these two people, a man or a woman, or a boy or a girl, based on how our social system is being structured. We also have gender relations. Before that, let's look at some examples under gender roles. Even in the olden days, education was something that was reserved for the males, or boys or men. And the ladies or girls or women's place was the kitchen. But right from that time, when you visit other countries also, like Britain, education was for all, but not a particular sex. That is what we are talking about here. We also have gender relations. So we are saying that gender relations are also the ways in which a society defines rights, responsibilities, and the identities of men and women in relation to one another. Gender relations are based on power and negotiations, and gender roles are closely linked, influencing the definition and development of one another. So gender relations, how the two genders interrelate. These two genders that we are talking about, it is not the sex, but the social construct that exists between males and females, women and men, boys and girls. That is the gender relations we are talking about. Now we also have gender-based violence as a term under gender. So gender-based violence, as the name suggests, is an umbrella term for any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will, and that is based on socially ascribed gender differences between women and men. The nature and extent of specific types of gender-based violence vary across cultures, countries, and regions. Let's look at example here. Example include the sexual violence, domestic violence, harassment in public and workplace, rape, trafficking, honor crimes, etc. Gender-based violence is a worldwide phenomenon, one that transcends the bounds of geography, race, culture, class, and religion, and affects virtually every community, every corner of the globe. Now let's move to gender equity. Gender equity. Now, gender equity is the process of being fair to women and men. That is equity here. So gender and equity combined, the process of being fair to women and men, or boys and girls. To ensure fairness, strategies and measures must often be available to compensate for women's historical and social disadvantages that prevent women and men from otherwise operating on a level playing field. This particular paragraph is just picking it from the example that we cited, that back then in the olden days, education was meant for only the male or the boys or the men, and the women were just limited to the kitchen. So gender equity is now talking about the fact that we are going to create a leverage platform whereby we are going to treat both men and women the same. But in doing that, we have to make sure that we put measures in place to compensate women for this historical fact that we are talking about. That is why even scholarships that are being awarded mostly in the educational sector in Ghana are given to girls or ladies most than the guys. Now we have gender equality also. Equality between women and men refers to the equal enjoyment by women, girls. So the equity is never the same as equality. Equity is talking about fairness, platform, a leverage platform for both genders to operate. And the equality is talking about equal enjoyment by women, girls, boys, men of right opportunities, resources, and rewards. So a guy can be a course rep, a lady can be a course rep, a lady can be a PS, and that is gender equality that we are talking about here. Now, gender identity. This refers to the person's innate, deeply felt internal and individual experience of gender, which may or may not correspond to the person's physiology or designated sex at birth. It includes both the personal sense of the body, which may involve, if freely chosen, modification of bodily appearance or function by medical, surgical, or other means, and other expressions of gender, including dress, speech, and mannerism. So, gender identity. An example is the LGBTQ+, or what we call the transgender. So this gender identity is just trying to let us be aware that irrespective of the gender, whether male, female, or transgender, the person has that right. That is why we read freely choosing modification of bodily appearance or functions by surgical means or any other means. We also have women empowerment. Women empowerment. As we are talking about gender, historical concept about gender, not giving women the platform, the same platform as men, then we have to talk about women's empowerment. So the women empowerment is basically encouraging, motivating the girl child, the woman, the lady, to do more. And how does this happen? This happens by putting up measures or structures in place that will help that woman, that girl, that lady to do more in the society. So from our slide, women's empowerment involves awareness raising, building of self-confidence, expansion of choices, increased access to and control over resources and actions to transform the structures and institutions which reinforce and perpetuate gender discrimination and inequality. Empowerment comes from within. Women empower themselves. Increase women's power through power with and power from within, which focus on utilizing individuals and collective strength of work towards common goals without coercion or domination. Now let's look at gender mainstreaming also. The truth of the issue is that all these key terms that we are going through will be used extensively in the subtopics that we will be treating in our next presentations and so on and so forth. So we have to understand all these key concepts or terminologies first before we start tackling other concepts too. So we are on gender mainstreaming. So today our main purpose is to understand these terminologies very well so that when they are being used, we can understand them and relate to them in the context in which they are being used. So before we talk about the gender mainstreaming, let's pick this one, sex. Initially, I said that there is a difference between gender and sex. Gender and sex are never the same. We have looked at gender. Let's look at sex. So the sex refers to the biological and physiological characteristics of men and women. That is sex. Biological and physiological characteristics of men and women. Then we also have sexuality. Sexuality are things people do, think, and feel that are related to their sexual desires. We also have sexual orientation. That is a person's sexual identity in relation to the gender or genders to which they are attracted. Then we have affirmative action. Affirmative action is more or less having a relationship with women empowerment. The affirmative action is the practice of choosing people for a job or schooling who are usually treated unfairly because of their race or sex. So that is why I was saying that it has a link with women empowerment. Affirmative action in Ghana is basically enforced because of women who are the minors in society. So currently speaking, we even have an affirmative action bill which is encouraging the government and other stakeholders and political parties to give women the chance to also participate or head institutions which are vital in this country. And we also have inclusion. Inclusion. That is the art of including someone in a larger group or a set. Social inclusion. The process by which efforts are made to ensure equal opportunities. Equal opportunities. That is social inclusion. So inclusion in this sense is talking about bringing everyone on board, engaging everyone on board, regardless of their background, regardless of their race, regardless of where they are coming from, for them to achieve their full potential in life. Such effort includes policies and actions that promote equal access to public services. Now let's look at gender stereotyping. Gender stereotyping. A situation that one decides unfairly that a type of person has a particular qualities or abilities because they belong to a particular race, social class, or set. Gender stereotype is generalized view or preconception about attributes or characteristics that are or ought to be possessed by, or the roles that are or should be performed by women and men. Gender stereotype is harmful when it limits women's and men's capacity to develop their personal abilities, pursue their professional careers, and make choices about their lives and life plans. So example, women are irritational, or similarly, women are nurturing. It is, for example, based on the stereotype that women are more nurturing, that child-rearing responsibilities often fall exclusively on them. We also have gender transformative. After the gender transformative, then we look at our gender mainstreaming. Then we will close docket on the key terms. So gender transformative. Social norms that limit women's and men's opportunities need to be understood and then change. Gender transformative approaches seek to transform gender roles and promote more gender equitable relationships between men and women in a lasting manner. So the gender transformative that we are talking about here, when we go to various homes, there are responsibilities of the woman, responsibilities of the man. But the gender transformative is trying to tell us that there are certain things that men can do beyond the ascribed responsibilities that society has given them. and they should be encouraged. They should be given measures or approaches that will help them to do that. So a man can also cook. A man can also bath kids. A man can also change diapers for kids. And all these things are gender transformative. Women can pay bills, can do what men also must do in the house. And this is what we are talking about as gender transformative. We also have gender mainstreaming. It's defined by the United Nations as the process of assessing the implications for women and men of any planned action in all areas and at all levels. So gender mainstreaming is a gender perspective. It's the process of assessing the implications of women and men of any planned action, including legislation, policies, or programs in all areas and at all levels. It is a strategy for making women's as well as men's concerns and experience an integral dimension of the design, implementation, monitoring and evaluation of policies and programs in all political, economic and societal spheres so that women and men benefit equally and inequality is not perpetuated. The ultimate goal is to achieve gender equality. So the ultimate goal of the gender mainstreaming is to achieve gender equality. Now let's go through these keywords that we have discussed so far, or the terminologies. So we first looked at human right. Examples, types. We came to the features or characteristics, and we even look at some importance of human right. From there, we came to the next keyword, which was gender and inclusion. So we looked at gender, gender roles, gender relations, gender-based violence, gender equality, gender equity, gender identity, women's empowerment, gender mainstreaming, gender transformative, gender stereotyping, inclusion, affirmative action, sexual orientation, sexuality. So these are the terminologies or keywords that we have looked out for today. Now, for the sake of deeper understanding on this concept, we'll have an assignment, which will be sent to you on the platform. Now, this assignment will be taken tomorrow. The time and the means of taking it will be communicated, and it will be scrutinized thoroughly and feedbacks will be given. So this brings us to the end of today's presentation. And like I said, all questions and comments can be in the comment section or can be in my DM, and I will attend to them swiftly as such. Yes, I will attend to them swiftly as such. So thank you very much, and we'll meet in the next presentation. And the reason why the style of this presentation went like this for the first time was for the fact that we were trying to, put things in place very well. So the next presentation wouldn't be in this style or wouldn't be in this format. Yes, to be in a more enhanced and advanced format, which will be very, very, very engaging than this. So thank you for your time today, and see you in the next presentation.